Greetings, friends. Prepare for another thrilling journey as we delve into Reddit's most bizarre tales. We're plunging deep into the quirkiest corners of the web. Grab your popcorn and join us on this adventure. Remember to hit subscribe and like. Let's begin. My name is Alex, 36, and I have two ex-partners. Ava, also 36, and Rachel, 34. There's a lot of context I can't fully share here, both for the sake of space and to maintain anonymity. I've known Ava since our school days. We met in a K-12 private school, specifically during middle school. She's about 2 months older than me, and we quickly became close friends. However, we didn't start dating until after we graduated, when we coincidentally ended up at the same university in the same major. It felt like fate, and after a supposedly platonic birthday outing turned into something more, we started dating. About 4 months into our relationship, we were already thinking of moving in together. Things got difficult when her father became ill. I accompanied Ava to Montana to be with her family, which consists of 6 brothers. She's the only daughter. During that time, I often felt out of place, though I was grateful to have met her father, who seemed to approve of me. Many of Ava's old friends, including a guy I'll call Todd, M27, reconnected with her to offer support. I didn't want to dictate who she should grieve with. After her father passed away, to this day, I don't know what illness he had, Ava was devastated and decided to stay with her family. I was okay with that, but my own father was also sick at the time. He had been battling cancer for years, with tumors spreading to his lungs, back, and even his brain. It was a tough fight, with periods of remission followed by relapses. I suspect my parents sent me to college so I wouldn't have to witness his decline. Eventually, I had to return to West Virginia to be with my father, and after he passed, I stayed with my mother Sharon, 58, and my sister Jess, 28. We handled all the post-mortem arrangements. My father had left a will, but there wasn't much to inherit. Jess and I were both still in school, so most of the remaining money was intended to support our mother or cover tuition. During this time, I struggled to stay in touch with Ava, despite my efforts. She was consumed by her grief, and although I was saddened by my father's passing, I knew his death was a release from his suffering. Instead of continuing to call or text, I decided to surprise Ava with a visit. I didn't expect to surprise Todd as well. In our apartment, you might imagine there was a screaming fight, but there wasn't. I saw their expressions as they untangled themselves on our couch, and I just turned and walked out. Thanks to a very supportive professor, I was able to sleep on campus, found my own place, and kept my distance from Ava. I couldn't talk to her. It felt like I would break if I did. It took me 2 years to get over her. Actually, I didn't until Rachel literally fell into my arms. It happened just before I graduated. Rachel fell off a ladder and onto me. Rachel was the complete opposite of Ava. While Ava was reserved, focused on excelling academically and professionally, and always trying to make her family proud, Rachel had a complicated relationship with her family. She was cheerful, adventurous, and without a doubt the most attractive woman I'd ever seen. Yes, I still think that. Though Ava was beautiful, Rachel was more emotional, empathetic, and just plain fun to be around, and I fell in love with her despite trying very hard not to. We were married within a year. I had just graduated and started working in my field. Barely a step above an intern, but I had my foot in the door and hadn't been crushed yet. For 2 years, things were great, until Rachel's abusive, drug-addicted, alcoholic father showed up. I'll call him Pig because he deserves it. He was probably in his late 50s at the time, and now he's nearing 70. Pig and I fought a lot. We argued over the money he was draining from Rachel, how he would emotionally crush her, leaving her feeling worthless. The vibrant, rebellious woman I had fallen so hard for turned gray and lifeless whenever her father was around. I'm not proud of what happened next, especially since he played me perfectly. I tried to bond with him. In my defense, I didn't know half of the awful stuff he was involved in at the time, and he got me completely drunk. He then set me up by taking photos of me with some woman he found at a bar and showed them to Rachel. You might think she believed her terrible dad over you. Trust me, I felt that way for years, But my therapist made a point about how living in an abusive situation can really mess you up, and I guess that makes sense. We tried to stick it out for a few months, but she was broken and I lost her. As I tend to do, I ghosted the entire situation, moved away, and changed my number. That was about 10 years ago. Personally, things sucked, but my career was going pretty well. In fact, I ended up being called as an expert witness in a lawsuit involving Eva, who had worked on the project and had correctly pointed out that the design needed specific materials, or it would fail. While I didn't think much of Eva as an ex, I admired her for being both conscientious and thorough in her work. Seeing my cheating ex again was strange, but I stayed professional because I didn't want to mess up the case. After it was over, we exchanged a few words, nothing major, but she asked about my father. I realized I'd never actually told her that he passed away while I was in West Virginia, and when I did, it hit her harder than I expected. We didn't see each other again for about a year, but then I ran into her at a conference with a group of her friends, some of whom used to be my friends too. One of them, Olivia, 27, wanted to buy me a drink. Apparently, Ava had told everyone the story of how I'd shown up at her court case and proved she'd done her job properly. I ended up carefully having a few drinks with them while they talked about their lives, and before I knew it, I was slightly buzzed and suddenly alone with Ava. Fueled by liquid courage, I finally asked the question I'd been curious about for 7 or 8 years. Why Todd? She hadn't even seen the guy in years, so why hook up with him? And why in our apartment? Well, Ava told me something I almost wish I didn't believe, but her demeanor was so unguarded that I kind of do. She decided to take herself out of the picture, so to speak, but didn't want me or anyone else to mourn her. She found out I was already on my way back home, and with little time left, she called Todd, got him to drive her back to our apartment, and made sure I'd catch them. That way, I'd hate her and wouldn't care if she wasn't around anymore. You're probably shouting at the screen by now. It took everything I had not to scream at her myself. Instead, I just sat there blinking. After I left, she kicked Todd out and prepared to end it all, but she broke down and called one of her brothers, and soon her whole family was in our old apartment. After taking a few weeks to process all of this, I decided to start talking to Ava again. We were friends for years before we got together. I cared about her, and we had a lot in common. Was she a bad girlfriend? Yes, but she was hurting, and I know all too well how that feels and what it can do to you. As for Rachel, she showed up at my door about 6 months ago. She's gotten in incredible shape over the years. Let me tell you, she's ripped. Still a few inches shorter than me, but she's got incredible definition now. She told me she realized her dad was lying after she had to pick him up from one of his usual bars and found him and the girl from the pictures unconscious in a booth. But like I said, I ghosted her, so she had no idea where to find me. So somewhere along the way, she decided to channel that anger, turned herself into a warrior, and dealt with her horrible father herself. Then she came looking for me. I'm sure she's leaving some things out. Like maybe she talked to my sister Jess. They got along when we were married. Regardless, right or wrong, I ended up back in bed with Rachel as soon as she showed even the slightest interest. I couldn't say no to her when we were married, and I can't do it now either. So here I am, nearly 37. For the past 4 months, I've been sleeping with my ex-wife while talking to my ex-girlfriend, and I'm 50-50 on whether I might want more with either of them. Ava hasn't said anything about wanting to get back together, and I'm not sure I could trust her even with her crazy, hopefully made-up story about planning to end things. As for Rachel, we haven't really talked about anything. Not her believing her dad, not how she found me after more than 8 years, not what actually happened to her dad. She's become more aggressive and doesn't seem to want to talk about emotions much at all. But sometimes after we're together, she curls up in my arms and shakes a little, and I really wish I had the courage to ask her what she wants. So yeah, I have no idea what either of them really wants, and I'm not even sure what I want if either of them told me. What should I do? Do I ask them? How do you even ask someone? A, are we just friends, or have you been dating me this whole time? Or, so, just sex, or are we back together? Without pissing everyone off? I honestly can't figure out what I should be saying here. Please tell me how to deal with this.